Hi there, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean from SMK Marketing, a small digital marketing agency here in Dublin, helping other small businesses with all of their digital and social media marketing needs. On this channel, I like to cover different aspects of technology specific to running a small business. A lot of that has to do with Apple products and how I run my business using Apple products, and how I recommend that you could do the same, as well as some other hints and tips relating to digital marketing and just small business ownership in general. So if any of that does sound beneficial to you, do please hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell as well, so you'll always be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now then, on to today's video, and we want to talk about this, the M2 MacBook Air, which as of today, which is the 12th of July, is finally available for pre-order, at least here in Ireland. I believe it is available everywhere in the world now as well. Now, what I mean by pre-order is you can configure it right now to your own favorite specifications and order it and pay for it and get it next month if you're lucky. But either way, it is finally coming, and that is a good thing, because so far all we've been able to get is the M2 MacBook Pro, which is a bit pointless, and this M2 MacBook Air with this beautiful new redesign is really the one that everyone has been waiting for. So then, my question of the day, and the whole point of this video, is should you buy the M2 MacBook Air as your only laptop to run your entire small business off? Well, the short answer is yes. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. No, but seriously, yes, but only in certain use cases, and I will explain why, because while it is shaping up to be a fantastic laptop, there is a rather huge problem with it, which I'll get into a little bit later on. So get subscribed and let's get into this right now. The first thing that will of course sway you to this new MacBook Air design, whether for personal use or for running your own business, is of course that beautiful new design. Apple have followed the kind of squared off design, the retro squared off design that they reintroduced, I suppose, with the 2021 16-inch and 14-inch MacBooks Pro, following along in the more squared off design that they've kind of been implementing into all of their products since the 2018 iPad Pro and then the iPhone 12 and iPad Air and so on. So it's very much a theme. It's likely going to come to the Apple Watch later in the year as well, and it looks fantastic on this new MacBook, especially that new midnighty blacky bluey color, which is beautiful. Everyone wants a black MacBook. However, what that means is that gone is the infamous wedge shape, which has been the kind of defining feature of the MacBook Air ever since Steve Jobs pulled one out of a tiny envelope back in 2008. There is some good and bad about this new design. Obviously, if you're a fan of the wedge shape, that is now gone, but the screen is getting a bump in size from 13.3 inches to 13.6. And like it or love it, the notch from the bigger MacBooks Pro is coming as well, but the good side of that is that means it does get the newer, much better 1080p webcam. And if you're going to be running a business off it, the better the webcam, the better. It might not have the wedge shape anymore, but this is still going to be a tiny, tiny laptop, measuring just 113 millimeters in height when it's closed. Compare that to the 14-inch, which is 155 millimeters, and actually it's even thinner than the thickest point of the old wedge shape Air, which was 161 millimeters at its thickest end. So overall, it is a thinner design. That's nice. It'll be light as well. Again, this could be good or bad depending on your personal use cases, but the MacBook Air does technically now come with more ports than before. The M1 MacBook Air and subsequently the older Intel models that preceded it since 2018 only had 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. Now, this doesn't sound like too much of an issue if you don't really need to connect your device to anything, but once you plug the USB-C cable in to charge it, you are only left with 1 usable port, not including the headphone jack, but you know, you can't plug a monitor into the headphone jack. And that was very annoying. Now, I had the 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro a couple of years ago, which had the exact same 2-port layout, and let me tell you, it was extremely annoying. Really, really, really annoying. And this has sort of fixed that, although not really. The M2 MacBook Air does come with MagSafe for charging, which is fantastic because it's much faster, it's proprietary, and it's a bit safer because if you knock into it, it'll just pop out nice and quick. I have the newer MacBook Pro 16-inch and having the MagSafe is great, but on the Air, you know, you're still only limited to 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, not even Thunderbolt 4, so you can still only connect 1 monitor, which is a bit annoying, but it is technically double the amount of ports as you had before. If you think of it that way, you can charge through MagSafe and then have the 2 USB Thunderbolt ports free. So, you know, get a dock and you'll still have a couple of free ports. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Tell me down below in the comments. Would you rather have more ports all throughout? Or is that kind of the point of the Air? It's light, it's small, and it's portable and practical. Another thing to note about this new design is that much like the M1 MacBook Air from 2020, this is completely fanless, meaning it doesn't have an active cooling system, it doesn't have a little fan spinning around inside cooling the device down. Now, as was pretty well documented with the M1 MacBook Air and the M1 MacBook Pro for that matter, the fan didn't make too much difference unless you were going to be, rendering hour-long Final Cut Pro videos on your MacBook. Then it would heat up and the fans would spin up a little bit. But realistically, if you're that kind of user, you're probably not looking at the MacBook Air anyway. So having a fanless design really doesn't matter. In my opinion anyway, it's for running a small business that doesn't have to do with high-intensity editing tasks. Another slight potential hitch with this is that according to current reports on the M2 MacBook Pro, it has been overheating quite a lot, and that does have a fan in it. So it's anyone's guess yet if that will apply to the M2 MacBook Air. The more squared off design might actually help it. The M2 Pro still has quite a bit of a wedge in it. It tapers around at the side, so it's quite compact inside. The M2 chip might be a bit hotter, but it might have more space to dissipate that heat naturally in the bigger chassis of the M2 MacBook Air. We'll wait and see. Nobody has it to hand yet. I'll report back when it does and give you a bit of an update on that, but I wouldn't worry about it too much just yet. Before we get on to the power, if you are enjoying this video so far and are looking for a little bit more information on MacBooks, how to run a business, running a small business with MacBooks, and overall just tech tips and social media tips, do please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It'll really help me out. I really want to grow this community as quickly as possible and share with you as much information as possible in the coming weeks and months. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll always be notified when a new video goes live. Now then, let's talk about power. And again, this is one of those things that might not matter to 90% of people, but it is worth mentioning anyway. The MacBook Air now comes with the brand new second generation Apple Silicon M2 chip. What does this mean? Not much. It's a slight increment over the M1 from a couple of years ago, which itself was a massive leap over the old Intel chips that Apple have been stuck with for years. The biggest benefit of Apple Silicon's chips versus Intel chips was the battery life. The battery life on older MacBook Airs was rated at about 10 hours if you're lucky. The MacBook Air M1 and the MacBook Pro M1 were both rated at between 18 and 20 hours, and this brand new M2 MacBook Air is rated the exact same 18 hours. So you should be able to do an entire workday without ever having to worry about plugging it in, quite likely 2 workdays. I regularly got 2 workdays out of my M1 MacBook Pro. I regularly get 2 workdays out of my M1 Pro 16-inch. You should very comfortably be able to do the same with the M2. That is the big selling point of the M2 in general. At the base model, the M2 MacBook Air comes with an 8-core CPU and 8-core GPU, much like the M1, 8GB of unified memory, and a 256GB SSD hard drive. Pretty much the same specs, but there are now more customization options. You can upgrade to a 10-core GPU if you really need to, and you can upgrade to 16 or, for some reason, 24GB of unified memory, which is Apple's version of RAM. Finally, storage can be upgraded from 256 to 512, 1TB, or 2TB. But each one comes with a premium, and you'll run up a bill pretty quickly if you're going to start customizing it like that. So just be aware of that. As expected, Apple does rate the M2, of course, as being noticeably more powerful than the M1, as of course it would, because why would they introduce a new chip without it being more powerful than the one it replaces? Specifically, it states that the video editing speeds are up to 1.4 times faster than the M1 and up to 15 times faster than the Intel i5 that came in the previous generation of MacBook Air. So if you're coming from an Intel MacBook, if you already have one, this will be a massive world-changing difference in performance, even if you didn't really think you needed it. But, and I'll start touching on the gripe with this one, this is way more power than 95% of users are ever likely ever going to need ever. Ever. The M1 was already more than powerful enough for everyday office tasks, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, browsing the web, creating content on a basic enough level, editing pictures, anything you could realistically be asked to do in an office job on a daily basis, or even running a small business on a daily basis, the M1 was more than capable of. So before we get into kind of the main recommendations, what I would say is if you already have a M1 model MacBook of any kind, ignore this completely. There's just no point, unless you're really desperate for that new design and your older one's still in great nick and you can get a good price for it. I wouldn't recommend upgrading at all. So just bear that in mind if you already have an M1 MacBook Pro or M1 MacBook Air. Okay, so then do I recommend that anyone buy an M2 MacBook Air for running a small business? Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. It's a brand new MacBook and it's the most powerful entry-level MacBook they've ever made. Of course they do. If you are looking for a light, powerful, beautiful, modern, comfortable to use laptop that will do virtually everything you could ever possibly ask of it, be a travel laptop, be a notebook, be a desktop, I don't see what you could possibly want more of. And this is my biggest point here. There's not much more you could need. If you're looking to buy this one, buy the base model. I only recommend the base model of this M2 MacBook Air. And the reason being is the price. The base model here in Ireland is $1,529. Now, that's a lot of money. There's no beating around the bush on that. That's a lot of money when you consider that the M1 MacBook Air, when it was new, was only about $12.99. So it has gone up in price noticeably. And for that, you get the 8-core CPU, 8-core GPU, 8GB of unified memory, 256GB of RAM. Does that sound like not enough? Maybe. Do you need any more? Unlikely. If you need extra storage, buy an external hard drive. They are way cheaper, and as Gary the Everyday Dad says regularly, if there's an Apple tax, it's on their storage. Upgrading the storage on this is going to cost you all of your money. And actually upgrading anything on this is going to start being a waste of money. Upping the unified memory to 16GB or even upping the hard drive to 512GB will run an extra €230, bringing the price up to $1,759. And at that point, you're starting to edge out of, consumer level base laptop into the pro laptops. And if you do both, you're very nearly at €2,000. And this is the big red flag, because if you need 16GB of unified memory, if you need 512GB of internal storage, buy the M1 Pro 14-inch. It's the same price. This one right now is available on Amazon, brand spanking new at this price. It's only £100 more, less than £100 more than a slightly spec'd up MacBook Air. For that, less than €100 more, you're getting a lot more than just those specs. You get a slightly bigger screen with the beautiful mini LED display and ProMotion technology, neither of which you'll get on the M2 Air. You'll get more ports with 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports. You get a HDMI port. You get an SD card slot port, which means you can connect to 2 external monitors rather than just one. And you'll get the way more powerful M1 Pro chip. And I know it's a little bit confusing that M1 Pro would be more powerful than M2, but M2 replaces M1. M1 Pro and M1 Max are still way above M2. M2 Pro and Max, when they come along, are going to replace them. But for right now, here in July 2022, the M1 Pro and M1 Max are still way, way, way better than the M2 chip. So if you're going to start upgrading the M2 MacBook Air when you're buying it, don't, because you're better off just buying the 14-inch. So let's sum all that up then. Yes, the M2 MacBook Air is going to be a fan-damn-tastic laptop. It is absolutely stunning, and had I not already purchased a new laptop only a couple of months ago, I'd be very, very tempted to buy a new one. It will be a fantastic laptop for running a small business off. It will do everything you could ever possibly need of it. Even if you do need to do video editing and photo editing and more kind of graphically professional tasks, it'll still handle that no problem at all. The M1 could already handle that no problem at all. If it's going to be your main line of business and that's what you're going to be doing 12 hours a day, you might want to look into something a bit more powerful. But for the odd bit of video editing, for Instagram posts or something like that, this will do more than enough. But I'll state again, only if you buy the base model. At the base model, it's well worth the money. Any more than the base, just keep going, save for another month and get the 14-inch. It's a better laptop. It just is. It's a better laptop. You're getting much more for your money. So yes, the M2 MacBook Air, definitely consider it for running your small business from, whether you're upgrading from an older laptop, an older Intel MacBook especially, or you're looking to set up brand new and need the equipment to start with. The M2 MacBook Air at the base model will be a great, great purchase for you. Have you already ordered one? Are you watching this a little bit later in the year and you already have one? Let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Was this video helpful for making your decision? If it was, do please hit it a like. Comment below, let me know what you think of the new MacBook Air, and do hit subscribe and ring the notification bell as well to be notified about any more videos we upload. And if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to check out my other video right up here on the Apple ecosystem and how I run my small business, SMK Marketing, using just a handful of Apple products. That could be really beneficial to you as well if you're about to set up your own business. Click the link up there to watch that, and don't forget to like that one too. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one.